Hello, today I'm joined by my guest Jamie Winch from the Land Registry. How are you doing, Jamie?
Yeah, morning, David. Nice to meet you. Very well, thank you.
I didn't use your full title there, but I'm going to Senior Stakeholder and Innovation Manager, and also the holder of the longest business card in the industry. Um,
Exactly.
Jamie, it's great to have you here today. Obviously, Land Registry is something that feels part of our DNA as estate agents. It's something that is coursing through our blood. We've used it for so many years, but indirectly. So I think it's probably fair to say that most estate agents don't have a relationship with the land registry that extends beyond perhaps, once we get to a conveyancing process and solicitors then have to get involved. And so this is a refreshing way to sort of meet the land registry, get to know
Yeah.
a little bit about them. And I've seen you pop up at conferences. So I bumped into your guys very, very friendly at PM1,
Yeah.
Property Mark
Smart.
1. You
Yeah.
were there as well. So I just want to say it's great to have you guys out in the open.
Yeah. And it's a really good point, actually, David. Land Registry, has been around for forever. I haven't quite been around forever, but, a fair few years myself now as well. And you're absolutely right. For estate agents, we've always been there providing that, that title information, that certainty on, you know, the ownership and provenance of ownership of land, and probably never had to have a relationship, with direct relationship with the estate agent because we provide those information services, at the start of a transaction and then underpin everything at the end when we update the land register.
So obviously our life has changed as well, and there's a constant sort of changing landscape of legislation and various different things that are they start out as good practice and they come in as rules later on. And so we get this thrown at us from time to time, and we've been through certain iterations of it. But obviously
Yeah,
material information is something that agents are under pressure to get right. And
absolutely. Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense when you think about it because really we're selling people probably the most expensive asset they'll ever purchase in their life, and they're right to want more information when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, we hear it all the time, and we were involved in discussions with the market when material information guidance came in from trading standards a few years ago as well. And you hear all the time, don't you, David? The biggest purchase you make in your life, is that property, isn't it? And you often still hear that it's also the most stressful purchase that you'll make in your life as well. And we at Land Registry, throughout our strategy, we want to support the market to make buying and selling homes, less stressful, and better for everyone.
So particularly today, we're going to be focusing on your local land charges service.
We are, yes.
And for those people who are unfamiliar with that, could you give us a little bit of an overview of what it is that it entails?
Yeah.
I'm cheating because I've tried and tested it myself today.
And I'm glad you've been on and created an account and actually you know what I'm going to be talking about
Yeah.
today, which is always refreshing, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, Land Registry has been responsible for maintaining the land register and provided that state guarantee of title, for over 160 years now. Local land charges is another statutory register, and it's part of what's traditionally called the local search in a transaction. So it's ordered at present by the buyer's conveyancer, and it's split into two parts. You've got your LLC 1, as it's often referred to, and your Con 29, which is your inquiries of a local authority. So back in 2013, Land Registry built a prototype to see if they could actually hold this statutory register because of variations in service provision that were being identified by the market. And it actually came about from our advisory council. So members of our advisory council back in 2013 reported variations in the speed at which the local searches returned, the cost differentiation, so from £6 up to £80 for it as well, and just inconsistencies in how the data provided. So we changed legislation back in 2016 under the Infrastructure Act, which now makes Land Registry the registering authority for all local land charges. And local land charges are things like planning restrictions, planning prohibitions, financial charges, tree preservation orders,
Yeah.
listed building status, conservation area. So a whole range of charges that actually, like the land register, they sort of entries on the land register, they bind successive owners. So it's a critical search. It's a critical service. It's been around since 1977, and there are variations that existed. So we're looking to remove those variations as well, and create and build the government's first truly digital and spatially enabled register.
So that's very important. So you've got more and more local authorities that have kind of been migrating their data over to this, and it's growing. What struck me from using it myself was that it's quite easy to register. Took me sort of less
Yeah,
than a minute to do that. I think I did what every estate agent does. You test it on your own house, right?
property first,
So,
yes.
so if you
So you're
go
obviously
back
in a
in,
migrated area, which is always good, isn't it?
it's and it's great actually because all that information that will come up, and I guess what screamed at me is it's a great early warning signal,
Yeah,
isn't it? That if anything problematic is going to come up, you're at least kind of forewarned so that you can preempt it, you can discuss it with the
yeah,
client. And let's not forget, and I know that estate agents never do, sellers of properties, they are not everyday sellers. So they're not seasoned property
yeah,
professionals. And this is a new process for them. And to a great extent, it is up to us as agents to guide them through this process and provide them reassurance. I think it's a lot more reassuring to turn around to a seller and say, look, I've preemptively done these searches. This is what it's brought up. Can we discuss it or can we address it? I think I'd feel really assured.
yeah. I mean, it's just really good practice, isn't it? And we know that traditionally this information has been locked in registers in, over 300 local authorities. And this is not to say that they didn't do a fantastic job in providing a service as well, but maybe through a lack of funding and investment traditionally as well, and being held disparately in physical form. We pick up microfiche, we pick up Kalamazoo files, paper card indexes. They are not sustainable to support digital conveyancing in the future, and it means you have to wait sometimes for that information to come back. So the way we design the service is on, like the gov.uk platform. So it passed all its assessments with the digital service to ensure that it's user friendly. And by centralizing it and holding it, in that digital format with it spatially enabled, it means you can surface that information, right at the start of a transaction. And in turn, that gives potential buyers or anyone who's having that first look at the property more certainty that they can proceed. And don't get me wrong, there are potentially, when we finish the program, or we'll talk numbers a bit later, I'm sure, there'll be 25 million digitally spatially enabled records available for anyone in a property transaction to view instantly, and again make that decision. Because we know what happens, don't we, David? We go and view a property, we fall in love with the property, don't we?
Correct. It
And
becomes an
then we
emotional
start thinking
thing. Yeah.
about, do we want to buy this property, when actually we already have that emotional contract with it.
Yeah, very, very true. And I think if we can, I think the aim of this in general is to help reduce nasty surprises. I mean,
Yeah,
uh, this is always was going to be part and parcel of the work that solicitors end up doing. But with
yeah,
estate agents having access to these local land charges at the outset, so before it even goes on the
yeah.
market, we get to have an intelligent snapshot of really all the key points of information that could prevent us from selling the property easily. And I think, forewarned is forearmed on these things, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. And going back to the service again, and I'm going to say it now, it's multi-award winning. It's also not easy. A lot of work goes in to actually transforming the data, and that's with the local authority. Because this is a notice register, it is still their data, but it gives you that early notification that, let's say, the property is a listed building, or there's a planning application that you want to understand more about. by having that early sight of this information through this service, you can go and make those inquiries at the start of the transaction rather than wait for traditionally, 13, 14, 15 days to wait for the information, or 2 months into the transaction when the searches are ordered, and then it elicits something that raises an inquiry. If we can raise those inquiries up front, that has the potential to reduce the friction, sort of like downstream, as we often say as well.
Yeah. I think every bit of innovation we end up making as an industry towards speeding up transactions ultimately does the same thing.
Yeah.
It gets a lot of the grunt work out of the way before we even get to the point where it becomes a problem. And I think that's what it's all about. This particular service, Jamie, it's live now.
It is, yeah.
And you're encouraging agents to sign up. And you're very much open to sort of feedback from their use of it as well.
Yeah, very much so. So, the service actually went live in 2018 when Warwick was the first local authority to migrate. And typically, you're talking about 60,000 records that are all quality assured and transformed. And then it's a live service. So we have integrations into the local authority's back office systems. So new charges go on in a timely manner as well. And exactly why we're at events like Property Mark 1, and other agent events as well, because again, with home buying and selling reforms announced recently as well, and probably a drive towards more upfront information or material information as well, this service is already here. So we've got 158 local authorities, with around about 330 in total already live on the register. And there are sort of like large swathes of the country that are fully migrated now. So the likes of, whole of North Yorkshire, the majority of West Yorkshire through into Lincolnshire and the Northwest. So we're about halfway, with regards to like the number of local authorities. There's still some complex authorities, local reorganisation creates not necessarily difficulties in how the service lands, but if you are maintaining 6 registers, an authority becomes 1 authority. You have to do all that work as well. But, with 158 local authorities now that you can search, and you can now, get this information on day one. So we would obviously naturally encourage agents to start using this. And the beauty of this bit, the free personal search, it's free at the point of access. So you can conduct your search. You can search by title number. You can search by address, or you can do a map search as well. What you can't do, you can't put a polygon around the whole of the borough of Rushcliffe and get every single charge for Rushcliffe. So it is limited by numbers, but but the real sort of strength in it is it's available on day one for anyone to use, whether you are on a tablet, or a desktop back at your office as well. And you can do that search, and and in front of your client or your prospective client, you'll say, "Let me go and have a quick look at this for you," and you can do that sort of live search with them.
I was going to say it's because it's so easy to use and because it's so responsive and quick. I would consider that actually to be quite a good thing to pull out on a valuation or a market appraisal. If you're in the living room, you could say, "Listen, we pride ourselves on trying to get this right. Let's bring up the data for this." I think that's quite impressive to prospective.
Yeah, I mean, the other example, the great one is like, you go and view a very, very nice mature property, and there's a beautiful oak tree in the back garden, and you'll say, "You don't worry about that. That is not subject to a tree preservation order." Or you could say, if you are really wedded to this property, that tree or that group of trees in the back garden, they are protected, so you would need permission to do any work to them, etc. And it just sort of adds that real value, doesn't it, in what the agent is offering the purchaser. And also for sellers, like that, again, you're giving people more certainty. When you're selling this property, you're going to have to make prospective purchasers aware, right, of the fact that the property is in a conservation area, or there is a financial charge attached to this property as well.
So if you're an agent looking at this, what would you say, Jamie, in summary, are the sort of 3 main USPs that make this something that you're going to really integrate as part of your processes?
Yeah, and thinking about this quickly, I think I'm going to be greedy and say there's 4 things really.
Okay,
right, but then I'll come back to 3. Right. So the information, the service means that this information, this important information that's going to inform your decision, is findable. So it's there. It's on a gov.uk service, right? So it's findable. It's accessible. We are not locking this away. This isn't difficult to find. It's there on day one. It's also interoperable. So again, the agent, once they've searched this register and found this information can be passed on. It can be passed on to brokers. It can be passed on to the conveyancer, to say, we found this as well. This will come up in the search, because the local search down there, and it's reusable, So again, the agents search once, okay. They might want to just do some investigation about the patch that they work on, to find out all the conservation areas, to find out all the properties that are listed buildings, to find out, where there's a Section 106 agreement on a new development as well.
Yeah, very useful.
It's findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. But the main benefit, it's there, it's free, and it's spatially enabled.
Well, I was about to ask you what it costs, but yeah, it's free. But if you need an official copy, and you need to sort of forward that on, sometimes we do need those. Those are very cost effective as well. I think they're about sort of £15 from memory.
Yeah, so the legislation requires us to make the service available via an official search. So you would do that through our professional channels, so our business e-services. We have 2 channels: Business Gateway and Portal. You can order a paid for a £15 official search. The main difference is you get that sort of certificate, that PDF back and everything, with the charge extent shown in relation to your search extent. But also, you get that free, and it's the same information, and both searches are still guaranteed. We guarantee the data. So an important part of taking on responsibility for local land charges is that if you conduct a search and a charge exists and it's not revealed, then the customer is entitled to compensation. And so we assume that responsibility, working in partnership with the local authorities. But again, there are certain transactions, it might be high value commercial, where the conveyancer will choose to order a £15 official search for their, and it might be their own preference. Sometimes some lenders don't accept personal searches at the moment, so there are choices, But certainly for agents, to do that initial investigation on the property, we're absolutely recommending you go and use that free personal search service on gov.uk.
So it's going to save time. It's going to prevent fall throughs, I think, and it will give us a better quality of conversation that we're having with buyers and also sellers even before we bring it to the market. I think it's a really good way of the agent demonstrating their local knowledge as well. And I don't think it gets more professional than the land registry, really, when you're relying on, when you're quoting something in front of a prospective customer. So it's interesting all these improvements are being made, and obviously there's a great national effort to make the house buying and selling process easier. I think I think ultimately it delivers an excellent customer experience as well. So something that we're all working hard to improve. What is next for the land registry in this space? Where are we going next?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question, David. And our priority has to be to finish the register. It would be remiss of us to finish on 158, and not complete this. And that's our number one priority. So, I have innovation in my job title. We've been working with lenders and some prop tech companies that have come out of our Geovation Hub, which is an incubator we share with Ordnance Survey, where we've been testing API access into this information. So you can actually call for this information en masse, so we can upscale. So we've done a lot of work with Nationwide, because they'd like to bring this information into their decision in principle process. So it brings it forward from the search currently right up to the lender doing a DIP. So we've been testing there. So with 158 on the register, our priority is to finish the service and complete it. So we have those 25 million records as well. And our ambition is to complete the program in 2028. So as well as working with the market on this and other users of the data, so bringing it into state agents. And like you said, we would absolutely welcome feedback, because we want to determine actually and see those cases where someone has made a decision up front whether to proceed or not to proceed based on that early sight of that information. So that's key for us. Beyond that, we want to continue to work with the market. As I said right up the front as well, we want to play our part in making home buying and selling a less stressful process as well. We know there are other data sets, within the home buying and selling process where we see friction as well. So we have just completed a pilot with our sponsoring department, MHCLG, which was looking at the potential benefits of surfacing building control and highways information earlier in the process. And that's not necessarily taking those into land registry in the same style as local land charges, but it's actually saying if the local authority, if it had that data in a digital format, could it be surfaced as part of that local search quicker or ordered earlier? And the real key finding in that work was the earlier you order the searches, the quicker you get the information back and the quicker you can raise those subsequent inquiries. Yeah. So, our focus at Land Registry is finishing local land charges, working with the market, whether it be the digital property market steering group or any other projects or pilots that are, forthcoming. But also we're going to focus on starting to create a geospatial land register. So very much like local land charges, can you imagine a future where you've got a completely digital geospatial land register? And the only other priority is that we've made a commitment to work on a new register called contractual controls. So Again, this is where we're surfacing information about option agreements for sort of like developers as well, to support government's ambition to build more homes as well. So we've got a lot on, but
you have got a lot
priority is supporting.
And it's just great though to see the progress, because it's come on leaps and bounds. Anything, if you would sort of go back in time, sort of 10, 15 years ago, if you visited conveyancers, you'd see that on there. I don't know if you've ever been in a conveyancer's office.
I have many.
But they have stacks and stacks of paper files, and very often in those paper files were these very antiquated sort of deeds and leases and all sorts of bits of information, which you now have kind of consolidated. It's all on a register, and it's accessible. And it's a massive undertaking, because it's it's in some cases hundreds or thousands of years history condensed into a digital file.
Yeah, and the key for it's a really important point you've raised there. When we built local land charges, we built it with customers, with conveyancers, with search companies, with local authorities. And that's where you get real benefit, because when you build it with your end users, they understand the pain points, they understand the impact of not having this information. So we're absolutely committed. Land Registry wants to put customers at the heart of all of the work we do as well, and that's our traditional customers, conveyancers, lawyers, solicitors, but also agents, the rest of the market, and then we know we play a central part in that. The one thing I would finish on as well is the work we've done here, and I always use Team Sky and cycling, marginal gains.
Yes.
One, local land charges will not solve or improve conveyancing wholesale, but if we all make small incremental improvements to our bits, the bits we can control, I do believe we can get there.
That is awesome advice. It's also scientifically tested. The British cycling team are an embodiment of that. The amount that they've won and achieved over the years. And I think it's the same with all our businesses and all our practices. If we can just tighten up 1% here and there, it aggregates, doesn't it? It
Absolutely,
makes a great deal of difference over time. Jamie, it's been fascinating getting to know you guys, and thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us today. We will be checking back in with you in the future. We're also going to be trying to encourage agents to sign up to this, test it, get their feedback. Maybe we'll have another chat after that. So thank you.
Sounds like a plan, David. Great to meet you.